I think a lot of independent comic book companies nowadays really need to start stepping up their game. I mean, especially, when you had something like this and this, both out at the same time, from the House of Horrors comic book series from Avatar Comics. Unfortunately, again, these didn't last long. But these were some great comics. I mean, some of the details they put in here, like, I always kind of felt it was a little more. I've always felt like the Nightmare was a little more. They went into details that you could never really get away with. But I always felt like there was a lot of anger. Look at some of these panels. I mean, dude, like, seriously? They just all look like they're super constipated. Like, here. It's like, dude, take a dump. But then you got someone like super creative death right here. Like, you going into a nightmare. This girl just starts vomiting like crazy to the point where she's drowning in her own vomit. I actually thought that was freaking amazing. And all of a sudden she goes into the world of like Freddy, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, she's dead. And that was actually one of the cooler. This was actually really cool, though. I mean, you could have really gotten creative with Freddy in comic book form. But then again, there was Freddy versus Jason versus Ash from the Evil Dead, which I actually have got to find an issue of that and actually review that just to talk about that. But of course, then you got the classic Jason Voorhees. Now, I know that Jasons would appreciate this comic book a little more because, well, in this one, I find it kind of weird because in this one, I really can't show too many pages on this, or at least certain pages, I should more or less say. But, like you see this one, like everyone's a little more happy, nobody's really all that angry. Everyone's just having a great time. And unfortunately, I can't really show the gore, too much of the gore because of censorships and all that stuff. Because yes, there is a lot of TNA in here. But they also were doing Jason X as well. I mean, they had an entire series. Look at this. These are all series that they did based on like horror movies. You had like Escape from the Living Dead. Escape of the Living Dead, yeah, Jason X, Species, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Lady Death. Those are the comic books I think that were of their other creations. But like the Escape from the Living Dead, my God, the details are just fantastic. And of course, you got like the Friday the 13th ones, where they had like wraparound freaking covers. And of course, the Nightmare on Elm Streets, the Texas Chainsaw Massacres. I mean, dude, these are fantastic for 2005. And this is from Avatar Comics. I mean, look at that detail right there on Escape from the Living Dead. That is pretty amazing. And seeing true to the source material, which so many have done. But speaking of zombies, I think we all know about zombie comics. I mean, come on. We've got like Zombie Christmas Carol, A Zombie Christmas Carol, Zombie Fairy Tales, Zombie Camp. We've got Zombies versus Cheerleaders. We have got, again, Zombies versus Cheerleaders, Zombies versus Cheerleaders, Zombies versus Cheerleaders. It's like zombies were like a huge deal in comic books. But what's interesting, though, in my opinion, are some of the more original ideas. Like, okay, this came from Marvel here, the Zombie Christmas Carols, which I still need to actually find issue 3 and 4 and 5 to complete the series. But it's kind of interesting to see a zombie perspective on an old Christmas classic. But one of my personal favorites, though, right here was Zombie Fairy Tales. Mostly because, check this out. This was pretty awesome. Okay, it wasn't in color, but of course, you got something like Alice in Wonderland, who's facing off against like the Cheshire Cat and the Mad Hatter and all that stuff, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, she's busts out a gun out from underneath her dress. Okay, that's pretty awesome. You know, but then you got like an original right here, like Little Dead Riding Hood. You know, she's a freaking zombie. And all that stuff, you know, and apparently she chomps down the wolf. Oh, and then of course one of my personal favorites in here is got to be good old Creepily Ever After, which is a total play off of freaking Disney movies. Okay, so apparently this prince comes to save a Snow White-esque character, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you got the genie popping up from Aladdin, who's saying, you know, you need to. Oh my God! It's ridiculous. If you could ever find this, it is well worth the read. But then, of course, you got Goldilocks and the Three Bears with zombies. Which, again, I thought was kind of interesting because now all of a sudden, like, these stories get more and more interesting. Of course, you got... Because this actually totally reminds me of EC Comics, you know, like Tales from the Crypt. Because it's multiple stories rolled into one, or more or less like Creepshow. It's multiple stories rolled into one comic book, which I actually thought was fantastic. Which is why I absolutely loved the Zombies vs. Cheerleader series, because exactly the same thing. It was multiple stories, but it was all cheerleaders killing zombies, which, you know, was absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. And there were some stories in here that were great, you know, and it's like, I actually loved, like, the multiple different art styles. And it was all cheerleaders killing zombies. I mean, that's just awesome. I mean, if you can find these, definitely highly recommend checking them out. But now we move on to another series of comics that most people would never really think about. Because again, earlier I mentioned Toxic Avenger and the Toxic